It's Wood. Today I'm here to talk about Appalachian Gothic, specifically book recs, and there is some like kind of nonfiction as well as shows, technically kind of recs at the very end, so stick around if you want to hear that. I feel like Appalachian Gothic is a genre that I feel like has been around for a while, but has had like a resurgence. And I would definitely probably put the blame on TikTok. There is just so much hullabaloo about Appalachia, about the woods, about the hills. If you see something, no, you didn't. If you hear something, no, you didn't. All of that stuff, which is fun. I honestly love those TikToks. I think they're super fun. I do think that if you want my opinion, a lot of it has to do with people's fear of like rural places and like wooded places and nature. Because the reason why I wanted to do this video in particular, my grandparents are from West Virginia. I grew up listening to kind of the stories that they would tell me about their lives, as well as my grandfather would like make up stories about like the aliens Phil and Paul who lived in Naugatuck and like, so I think this is like kind of a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I wanted it to be maybe my first video on booktube. So what I have here is a nice little bit of recommendations, as well as some things that I've been reading on my Kindle, and some things that are a little bit more witchy, a little bit more kind of like folk magic-y, if that is something that you're interested in. But yeah, sorry if you can hear my cat. She's playing with her automatic toy right now, even though it's not going off. Oh my goodness, she is nuts. Pepper, come over here. What you doing? Hopefully I can like try to decrease some of that audio in post. But without further ado, I do want to go over some of my book recommendations, some of the things that I've been reading recently. The first one is my most recent read, and that is The Woods All Black by Lee Mandello. Okay, this book had me in a chokehold. I read it in one sitting. It is about a trans male nurse in, I believe it's 1920s Kentucky, who is a veteran of World War I, was on the front lines as a nurse, is obviously not out as a trans person because it's the 1920s. So it's pretty much starts off as a tale of him in this super small town, like teeny tiny small town, like 50 fucking people, and the difficulties that he has in trying to be a nurse when there is this overbearing evangelical preacher who makes things really tough for him to actually get anything done. And of course, this is made even more difficult when things start to get a little bit weird with another trans boy in the town who is just the topic of local gossip and maybe tied to weird, monstrous things happening in the woods. So this is folk horror. This is trans revenge, trans rage. It is a love story. It's monstrous. I don't want to give away too much because it's small, but it packs a punch. And this is something that is, I think if you love trans fiction, if you love queer fiction, if you love horror, this is definitely something to watch, something to read. And a lot of people don't find this as horrific. I think a lot of the horror does come in with just like prejudice townspeople, like living in a rural, isolated area. It's kind of that, like, you know, terror of the human monster versus the freedom of being the monster that people think that you are. It's so fucking good. So I recommend this. 1920s Kentucky, woods that are maybe alive, maybe sentient. So fucking good. Okay, this one I'm currently reading, but I still would recommend it. It is Smother Moss. This is in 1980s Appalachia. I can't remember what specific state it's in, but this kind of starts off as a story about people going missing on the mountains. And we have these two sisters who kind of live in their own little world. It's very surreal. It's very kind of stuck in the head of these two sisters as they want to go and investigate and try to solve these murders. But as things go on, it kind of veers a little bit more surreal, I guess. So when the brutal murder of two female hikers on the nearby Appalachian Trail stuns their small community, the sisters find themselves tangled in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. So this says it's terrifying and otherworldly, which I think is a very good description of it. These girls have wild imaginations. It kind of goes into that similar thing that The Woods All Black does, where like the mountains have a mind of themselves. They're personified. A little bit horror, a little bit thriller, a little bit lit-fic, I would call this. And it does have a little bit of a theme of like queer awakening. So definitely something that I am enjoying. I haven't finished it yet, so I can't give a rating, but gorgeous. Gorgeous cover too. I got it for Appalachian Gothic reasons, but also very much for the cover of this one. Okay, next one is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This is the like Illumicrate Evernight version of it. It has beautiful sprayed edges. It's gorgeous. This one is set, I believe, in North Carolina. So yeah. So the main character, Mouse, she is tasked by her father to go and clean out the house of her grandmother who has recently passed, who was just like a nasty old woman. She was a hoarder. She has a room full of creepy dolls, living out kind of like in rural North Carolina in the middle of the woods. So of course this gets into very creepy territory when she begins to see weird things in the woods, strange effigies, lots of weird rocks and carvings. And then of course it all kind of comes to a head when she discovers this journal of her late step-grandfather that is like stark raving mad. It's talking about the Twisted Ones. It's talking about these paranoid fantasies of creatures coming after him. And there's this like underlying thread of this like Lovecraftian book that this grandfather is reading and like trying to dictate to the best of his ability, remembering what it said that will help him fight or hide against these Twisted Ones. If you like weird fae shit, and I'm not talking about like I fell in love with the Fae Prince, I'm talking about like unseelie, scary fae, this is something you need to read. It is amazing. I said it gave me Hellier vibes, which I will talk about later in this clip. But yeah, really just, again, this is surreal, this is otherworldly, has badass female characters, has a lovable dog, and Lovecraftian scares. It gets real weird at the end, but I love it. I love T. Kingfisher. Another thing that I love about T. Kingfisher as an author is that even in her horror book, she gets this very comedic, very humorous writing style and narration style that like surprisingly keeps things light, but it still doesn't like pull any punches when it comes to the scares. So I love it. It's so, so good. The last of like my physical books that I have on hand that I want to recommend is Starling House. This is the Owlcrate version. I usually get all of my special editions on Mercari, like just scrolling around, and this was one of the first ones that I got. It is beautiful, and it's set in rural Kentucky. It's a gothic fantasy fairy tale that is like still very realistic and gritty. It is about this house that, what is the main character's name? Opal. Opal is obsessed with this house ever since she was a little girl, but had to kind of throw away those dreams as she got older and as her mother died, and kind of left her and her brother in poverty, living in this small motel, just trying to get by, trying to make ends meet, trying to get her brother out of the town because he has horrible asthma, and it's just this old coal town that is polluted, that this company has been like really just raising them to the ground, stealing all of their natural resources and leaving the town basically in poverty. And all of that is just a really amazing in-depth backdrop to this fairy tale about this kind of like sentient house that is calling her in, and the man who lives there, how they kind of meet and come together under kind of not great circumstances. So there's so much going on in here. There's subplots on subplots, and as you read, you kind of get not only Opal's story, but a lot of the other people in the town's stories about what happened, what made Starling House, and the dark history of the town from different perspectives. It's all about like small town gossip, how that turns into myths and like stories and dreams and lies. It's really good. I really liked it. It's a lot of people don't like it. I think the writing style is not to everybody's taste. It's very purple. It's like still like realistic and grounded, but it is just Alex E. Harrow like really feels herself, I think, when she was writing this book, which makes sense because she talks about it being kind of like a love letter to her own hometown. I loved it. I thought it was really interesting, and I recommend it if you like that kind of sentient house, fairy tale, Alice in Wonderland vibes almost, but set in the backdrop of just like grungy, like small Kentucky town. All right, these other ones I have not read, but they are on my TBR. I won't go into super intense detail about them because I don't know much about them, but we have Revelator by Daryl Gregory. This is set in 1930s Appalachia. I believe it's in Tennessee. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Stella lives with her grandmother, and they are ruled by this entity known as Ghost Daddy. Again, I haven't read this book, and it's on my TBR for a reason. It seems super interesting. So she goes back after her grandmother has died and has to settle her estate. This is all I really know about it because I want to go in blind, but it is another one that I have seen that's recommended for that kind of Appalachian horror, Appalachian Gothic, folk horror vibe. So recommend that one. It is on my Kindle as we speak. Then of course I couldn't go without mentioning the big man. Mothman, of course, from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. There is a book called Below. It is kind of a monster tale creature feature about Mothman set in this town. It has been described as this kind of like romp of a monster tale, but still with an otherworldly, eerie vibe. I really want to read this one. I love Mothman. I think everyone loves Mothman. He's a great creature, and there are a lot of fun cryptids in Appalachia. So if you want Appalachian Gothic, sometimes you're going to run into that cryptid vibe. And this is a book that I really want to read that seems to lean way into it. Okay, so now that I'm done with the fiction recs, I do have 2 nonfiction books and one kind of like web series that I want to at least touch on, because you can't not, you know? So if you are interested at all in granny witchcraft, Southern folk magic, Appalachian folk magic, this is a book that you need. This is Staubs and Ditchwater, A Friendly and Useful Introduction to Hill Folks Hoodoo, by H. Byron Ballard, Asheville's Village Witch. So this really goes in depth, my cat is over here, into Appalachian folklore, into folk medicine, folk magic, and talks a lot about kind of the intersections that created this particular magic system, whether it be African American slaves, the native population in the area, and then like the Scots-Irish settlers kind of all coming together and making this like mixing pot of just folk magic. It is so interesting. And this I'm pretty sure is A Season of Lights, How We Celebrated Hillbilly Yule. It is so interesting. This is the first book, and I believe there's 2. There's this one and then a sequel that goes into even more in-depth kind of ruminations on folk magic. If your family is from Appalachia and you want to kind of get into this sort of like ancestral lineage of magic, this is what you need to read. This is so interesting. It's so cool. I absolutely love it. And this person really does their due diligence in giving credit where credit is due to the populations that have made this a thing, you know, made this folk magic tradition, gave them the roots and the foundation of what it is today. So absolutely fascinating. Then there is also, if you're interested in herbalism and folk medicine, Southern folk medicine is not just Appalachian, but it is basically Southern, about Southern folk medicine in general. And it also goes again into the history of the different people who practice it. And it's just fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. You don't necessarily have to like want to practice like herbalism, folk medicine for this to be a fascinating read. It's just going over the history of the region, the history of Southern folk medicine is really fun. It's one of my special interests. Thought I'd mention it because who knows if there are like witchy people here that are wanting to learn more about these paths and these traditions. Or if you're just a fan of learning about the history of a place and learning about the folklore of a place. Perfect, beautiful, love it. Really fun to read alongside these really kind of like gothic, fantasy, horror-esque novels. How it gives it kind of like some sort of context. I like it. I think it's fun. And then there's one last thing that I do want to recommend. It is very niche, very It's so hard to explain. Basically, there's this web series called Hellier, and it's about this town in Kentucky called Hellier. And these two paranormal investigators, this married couple, gets a email from this person claiming to be a doctor who lived in the area of Hellier, who had a mine on their property, an unused mine, and the stories that he tells of what happened in this town that caused him to leave. Basically, if you are interested in weird fake creatures, if you're interested in cryptids, if you're interested in paranormal stuff, high strangeness, you have to watch this. It gets a little bit wild, because it is just completely, you know, it's not fictionalized. It's not played for like scares. It's these people actually looking and investigating into a place, and sometimes they reach dead ends, and sometimes they have hypotheses that don't go anywhere. Basically, this man has been seeing these little goblins around his property, finding footprints, taking pictures of them, and is at a loss because they are terrorizing him and his family. And the whole story is about them trying to track down this person, going to Hellier, trying to find these goblins, and then getting way more than they bargained for. So fucking cool. So interesting. It gets wacky. I will say it gets wacky, but I love it, and you guys should definitely watch it. I believe it's here on YouTube. I believe it's free. And if it's not on YouTube anymore, I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon. I will double check that though, and then put it here if it is not. So yeah, those are my recommendations for this kind of Appalachian Gothic folk horror type vibe. We have fantasy, we have lit fic, we have horror, we have everything that you could possibly want. It's really fun and I love it. If anybody has any other recommendations, I've read like a good amount in this genre, but I am always hungry for more. Leave any recommendations in the comments, and let me know if you read any of this stuff, what you thought. If you watch Hellier, please talk to me. I need someone to just go crazy with, honestly. So yeah, that's all for me. If you like this, be sure to like and subscribe. More bookish content coming, and hopefully more recommendations of fun niche genres that I personally really like, and hopefully other people are interested in as well. So yeah, bye.